please. Well, first of all, let me comment that those ladies, it was beautiful what we just saw a few minutes ago. And oh yes, and gentlemen too. I've just been corrected, not just ladies, gentlemen. I could just describe it with just 4 words. It was beautiful. They were skillful. It was elegant. And I must say that they successfully combined dancing with acting and with singing. It was beautiful. So I'm starting on a very, very good note because I really enjoyed it and I'd like to see more of that in future. Now, let me wear this first hat, and at this junction, I would like to employ and ask you to please put on your spiritual eyes so that you can see the hats I'm wearing now. You can't see with the physical eye, you need a spiritual eye to see. So, I will speak first, so just make a few comments based on what I've had here today as a minister responsible for trade and investment. And then I will then swap that hat and speak on behalf of the president, because no one speaks after the president. He's number one in this country. President of the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and members of the council, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, I should have started with that because it's our host in terms of protocol. You're well represented here by 2 people. That tells you how important this event is today. The Permanent Secretary and Special Advisor in Commerce and Industry. Dr. Ajayi, the President of Nasina. Council members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to recognize the LCC as the pace setter in this country. But Kano and Inewe associations are not too far behind LCC. I don't want to be accused of bias. You already demonstrated through a number of things. I will just highlight a few of them. You already write your economic review. I think I'm not sure whether it's done quarterly or half year. Is it quarterly or quarterly? And I must say that I read them. It's a must read for me. I find them so extremely useful. And each time I read them, I want to call the president and say, could you organize to have a presentation to government? We need to hear from you most of the time, and you need to be part of the solution of the issues we have raised in that point. On the trade fair, I want to expand briefly on what the president said, because I asked him a question which he talked about earlier. As pace setters, that brings with it its own responsibility. You have to be seen to be on top, to be ahead of the game at all times. That is why I believe that every year we have successfully organized this trade fair and have always described it as extremely successful. I think for an organization that has in the position of LCC in the country, I would like to encourage, if it's not there already, that at the end of each of these fair, that you develop some key performance indicators and share your success, communicate them widely enough for Nigerians and for the government to be aware of your success and how you measure your success. I scribbled a few things down in terms of what I would have liked to see and hope to see at the end of this forum. It would be nice to see the number and the value of transactions in the next 1 week or 10 days here. It will be interesting because this is about money. Trade is about money, it's about job. There's no point being afraid of it. It's money. And we need to know how much are changed hands, and we need to know the number of transactions taking place. It's important to know about the number of the participants and their diversity. And when I say diversity, it's important to recognize the industries and the sectors that are represented. This is an international trade fair. Therefore, it's important to know the number of countries that are here today, particularly other African countries. There's a great opportunity for us to increase the trade. The intertrade within Africa is only 11%. In Europe it's 60%, in Asia it's more than 60%. There's great opportunity for us to increase our trade, intra-African trade. And you can only do that by making sure that other African countries are paying events like this, and we make it easier for them to come here. And that's why that diversity is important. The type of products and their diversity is important. I say that because government policies that we're moving away from exporting just raw material to exporting finished processed goods, value addition. The only reason Africa today only has 3% of the global share of trade is because Africa has permanently remained at the lower end of the value chain, exporting raw materials, and raw materials. And ladies and gentlemen, look at the political history of all the countries in the world. United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, US, everywhere. No country has moved from being a poor to a rich nation by relying entirely only on the export of raw material without having a strong industrial and services sector. No country has done it. We will remain poor, we will remain developing if we do not make that transition and shift in power. All other countries distinguish between good trade and excellent trade. You want to be involved in excellent trade. Excellent trade is about trading, process, and value addition. Crude oil generates money. It's a depleting asset. You are realizing your assets when you sell crude oil. You are not producing. That is why I worked so hard when I was Minister of Finance to make sure that my set of the sovereign wealth fund, so that money is realized from the sale of a depleting asset is used for the economic development of the country by investing in infrastructure that will stimulate trade and economic development. That's why I made sure that part of that money goes into a stabilization fund to augment the budget when you have sustainable fall in all prices. And that's why I made sure that the third box was for the future generation, because it's unfair for you to deplete the assets we all have, use it in unproductive manner, and not save for the future of your children, our children, our grandchildren. So those are some of the words I like to leave with. There were specific comments by the President and the President of Nassim. You talked about substandard goods. I want to say that is also a major concern to the government and to me, because some reports to me and CPC. You must have heard that we signed performance contracts. They have their own KPIs to make sure that substandard goods go down to below 30% by Q1 next year, and they work towards eliminating it completely before the end of next year. The President himself is worried about it. That was why I did organize at one of our sessions at the Economic Management team for SUN, CPC, and RAMI to make a presentation to the President on the problems of some of the substandard goods in the country. We know what they are, we know where they're from. They need to be strengthened so that those organizations do not only back, but that they can fight, and they can fight very hard. What that means is that there's a need to change the act establishing them and the fines for those who indulge in bringing in substandard goods into the country. That is why the President has directed that I organize for them to make the same presentation to the members of the National Assembly so that the bills of the legislations can be amended very, very quickly. Let's just update you that we're aware and we're taking the necessary action. I want to thank you for giving us some credit in terms of power, the electoral process we've talked about infrastructure. It's now common for the private sector to recognize sometimes the government is on the right track and doing the right thing. But I think LCCI have always been objective and have been kind. Thank you very much. So that ends the speech of Olusegun Aganga. I now remove that hat, and with all this, I wish I had a lady here to help me put that big hat on. I now speak on behalf of the President of the Federal Rupublic of Nigeria. Lagos Chambers and Commerce, the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Goodluck Ebele OON, Council members, President Nasima, Dr. Herbert Ademola Ajayi, OON, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to once again be here to declare open this 26th edition of the Lagos International Trade Fair being organized by the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I congratulate the President and all members of the Chamber and the Trade Fair Organizing Committee for their relentless effort towards ensuring that this edition is also a success as previous editions. The importance of trade fairs and exhibitions in the expansion of trade and promotion of economic diversification cannot be overemphasized, as it creates opportunities for buyers and sellers to meet and forge partnerships that can last for a very long time. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is pertinent to note that the theme of this year's trade fair, promoting trade for sustainable economic transformation, is not just appropriate but very timely in view of the fact that Nigeria, like many other developing countries, is prepared to mainstream trade in her development strategies. In fact, the consensus amongst policymakers and the private sector is that in the current economic climate, where most economies are battling to reduce the budget deficit, where most economies are struggling to reduce the level of unemployment, in a world today where most economies are working hard to solve their sovereign debt crisis, the most potent tool for sustainable and inclusive economic growth is trade and investment. That is why LCCI is so important. That is the tool, trade, that would lead to sustainable, inclusive growth in the current economic climate. It is therefore not surprising to see that the global trend today is for presidents, prime ministers, and trade and investment ministers and trade and industry ministers to embark on trade missions to strategic countries with members of the private sector to look for the opportunities to attract investments and develop sustainable trading relationships. In this regard, while we work on improving international trade and having new trading partners, we must deepen domestic trade as well as regional trade. We must also ensure that we move away from the culture of exporting raw materials and job opportunities to a new culture of exporting finished goods and creating jobs locally, as this is the only tool we have towards creating the much needed jobs in our country. This is the only way we can gain our own share of the global wealth. It is the only way to transform our economy and move from a poor developing nation to a rich developed nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the only way we can increase our and Africa's share of the global trade from a dismal 3% level to a high single-digit number to start with. We have the opportunity as a country, to increase Africa's intertrade from the poor 11% to at least 60%, a level already achieved by the Eurozone and the Asian economies. Ladies and gentlemen, this administration under my leadership is very serious about repositioning our economy. To show our seriousness, we commence by creating the Ministry of Trade and Investment from the elsewhere Ministry of Commerce and Industry and giving it a wider mandate. This mandate includes, but not limited to, creating an enabling environment, direct investment into all key sectors of the economy, expanding trade, and promoting enterprise or SMEs. I'm aware that the Minister of Trade and Investment commenced an investment climate reform program in October last year to improve the ease of doing business in our country and its competitiveness. I'm also aware that their work has started to yielding some positive results, as a recently released Doing Business report by the World Bank 2013 shows that we have made a slight improvement in our doing business rankings, the first positive movement in 3 years. The latest global competitiveness rankings issued by the World Economic Forum also show that we have moved up 12 places to 115 position. But ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you that our goals and our targets are far more ambitious than this. We have set ourselves a target, and we hope to accomplish that before the end of this administration. As part of our efforts to make it easier for entrepreneurs to start their businesses, the Minister of Trade and Investment just yesterday commissioned the new Corporate Affairs Commission office in Alausa here in Lagos. And at the same time, launched a 24-hour start to finish business registration service. What this means is that from today, you can now register your businesses within 24 hours. I'm delighted that this announcement is being made with the Registrar General of CAC here himself. To show that we mean business, I directed yesterday that a complaints register must be open for anyone who for any reason does not get his business registered within 24 hours to make that. We want to be transparent, we want to be accountable to those who elected us into office. That is the way this administration is going to demonstrate its seriousness. As part of this investment climate reform program, I recently approved the setting up of the Nigerian National Competitiveness Council, which will be led by the private sector, as well as the Doing Business and Competitiveness Committee and Investor Care Committee. While the National Competitiveness Council will be private sector-led council charged with the mandate of enhancing Nigeria's competitiveness by proposing policy recommendations that will create an economy that attracts domestic and foreign investments without focusing on or benefiting any specific interest group, sector, or individual. The Doing Business and Competitiveness Committee, on the other hand, has the mandate to regularly monitor, review, and recommend improvement on existing policies and legislation that govern the act of doing business in this country. They also have the task of dealing with the day-to-day issues faced by businesses which are barriers to enhance productivity. The Investor Care Committee, however, is saddled with the mandate of solving the complaints from investors on account of apparent irregularity and inconsistency in the implementation of some government policies. And industry and other chambers working actively with the National Competitiveness Council, and these two committees, they meet twice a month, and they bring their findings to an interministerial group which I chair every quarter. We meet, the next meeting is on Friday. We will make recommendations to the President on what needs to be done. On that, Nigeria ranked #1 in the top 5 most economies for FDI in Africa. This further attests to growing investor confidence in our nation. We all must play our individual roles to ensure that this is sustained in 2012. My administration is also determined to improve trade and trade-related infrastructure in the country. I'm delighted that the President of NASIMA actually acknowledged this in his speech. To improve domestic and regional trade, we are at an advanced stage in transforming the Abuja Securities and Commodities Exchange into a world-class commodities exchange, serving not just our nation, but the region as well. It will also transform domestic and regional trade immensely. This should be completed before the end of next year. We have also attracted significant investments into the country from one of the global players in warehousing and logistics sector. In fact, they came to the country with me last month. The administration launched a power roadmap 2 years ago. It is gratifying to note that there has been a remarkable improvement in power generation and distribution since we launched this roadmap. In fact, the manufacturers, through their association at the last economic management team meeting, confirmed that they now receive 15 hours of uninterrupted power supply. I want to congratulate the Executive Governor of Lagos State and the Chief Host, Vice Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, for providing a conducive and peaceful environment for this great event to take place. I also once again commend the leadership and members of the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry for their effort in organizing and sustaining this fair over the years. I hope you will take full advantage of this fair to contribute meaningfully towards the expansion of trade to ensure a sustainable economic growth of the nation. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I was just going to say something, he said, please don't say it. So I will not say it. So let me just, I will hold on and defer that section to when I'm allowed to say it. But before there was a comment which you made which I wanted to comment on, which was on the trade fair. First and foremost, let me say welcome back to TBS. It's a beautiful place to hold this event. It's great. And luckily, this is under my ministry as well. The trade fair is under my ministry as well. So there are two important structures for the economy. Your points are well noted. When I first became the minister of this ministry,